Hi, today I posted my own small post with my own thoughts when the iPad 3 will be launched. And I think it will not be released until June, July this year on the Worldwide Developer Conference. The reason is that I know that Apple has moved the launching schedule for the iPhone to October, November. So the June-July launch period when the Worldwide Developer Conference is a perfect date for a big and important product as the iPad is for Apple. So my own belief is that it's on that conference that Apple will release the iPad 3. So that's what I thought. So we have a long wait until the iPad will be released, if I am right. But on that post I did on Google Plus, it got at the moment 40 comments, a really great discussion. Joe Jackson says that he thinks it's strange that iPad 3 would be released when iOS 6 is announced on the Worldwide Developer Conference. Okay, I can agree that, but why really? If they announce iOS 6, it will probably not be available until when iPhone 5 is available in October, November. So the iPad 3 will not run on iOS 6 from the beginning anyway, so why not release the iPad 3 and then on the same conference announce iOS 6? I can't see a problem with that. Actually, I think it could be great to have iPad 3 and iOS 6 on the Worldwide Developer Conference, because I think iPad 3 will have a revolutionizing new display where the developers need to develop new apps for a new display. So I think it's perfect to announce that on the Worldwide Developer Conference. So I still think that June, July is a great date for the iPad 3, so we will see what happens. Ibish Manav says, he asked why. How would the iPhone move have any strategic significance for the iPad? Well, as I said, I think it's a perfect match with the iOS 6 announcement with the iPad 3 on the same conference, Worldwide Developer Conference. Because it's a strategic big move for Apple to release the iPad 3 with a much higher resolution on the screen. I think the developers need to update or make new apps for iPad 3. That's what I believe. Charles Vass posts a lot of comments about that he thinks that Apple will maybe release some smaller iPads too, so it can compete with all the Android tablets. But I never think that Apple will release smaller tablets, and they never do cheap devices. So they do quality devices where user experience is much more important than specs. So if Android will choose to release a lot of cheap tablets, smaller tablets, and so it's not Apple. Apple will never do that. So I have a hard time believing that Apple will release a smaller tablet. I don't think so. They will never do that. Maybe that iPod Touch will be discontinued and a new kind of iPod Touch will be released with a bigger screen, maybe 5 inch or so. and that device will probably be cheaper than the iPad, of course, but I don't think so. I don't think it's 100% sure. I don't think Apple do small and cheap devices. So no, I think they do one iPad, and that is iPad 3, and it will be launched June, July, Worldwide Developer Conference. This is my personal opinion anyways. Joe Jackson says also that he thinks the iPod Touch will be replaced by a 7-inch mini tablet at the price range of $249. Well, maybe, as I said. I don't think 7-inch, maybe 5-inch is more possible. But yeah, many things that Apple will release smaller versions of the iPad, but I don't think so. They don't need that. iPad 3 is perfect. It's a perfect size. Maybe they can do the bevel a bit smaller though, so it's easier to hold the iPad. But we will see how the iPad 3 will look. Well, more comments about smaller iPads. Charles Vass starts to agree with me that the date June, July could be possible, right? iPhone 5 is October, so it looks good to have an iPad 3 in June, July. Apple TV, a new Apple TV could also be possible, announced on the Worldwide Developer Conference. Then Alex Schleber posted that he thinks it's interesting. I don't see how Apple can really wait all that long without some major launch, given the entire first half of 2012 to the competition. I think they need the iPad 3 out in the spring, he says. And he says also that I agreed on the price drop for the iPad 2 though. I'd be surprised if it were as low as you seem to think. $299, I said that in the post. That would be super aggressive, he thinks. Almost at cost, but it costs to make the iPad. But I still think that Apple will release, will launch the iPad 2 with a lower price when the iPad 3 is launched. They did that with iPad 1. iPad 1 was very aggressively priced after iPad 2 launched. So why not do the same when iPad 3 is launched with iPad 2? $299, yes, it's very aggressive, but I think Apple can do that. Ibishmanov comments very good about that Apple doesn't do cheap. They never make cheap products just to be cheap and competitive. They do quality. And I agree with that. Joe Jackson says that if Apple release an iPod Touch, a 5-inch iPod Touch, will the iPhone 5 also be 5-inch? No, I don't think so. iPhone will never be as big as 5-inch. Maybe it could be 4-inch, but that's not quite... I don't think that either, but maybe 4-inch. Personally, I think that smartphones in general will be smaller soon, because we have new techniques like Siri that makes us type a lot less. Such techniques makes it so that smartphones doesn't need to be big anymore. They can be smaller. I think we will soon see a change in that. from big phones to small phones. So I don't think that maybe the next iPhone will be a bit bigger, but all the coming after that will be smaller again, I think. So tablets need to be big though. That's why the iPad is 9.7 inch big, a perfect size for a tablet. So we will have small phones in our pockets to communicate with people, and we will have tablets to make more productive things like blogging, writing, editing stuff and such, web browsing, reading, you name it. So we will see. I don't think a 5-inch iPod Touch, but it's a possibility. Nick Moore comments and says that I hope they don't delay the iPad 3, but I can see your point of view. I can't wait until July though, no patience. I can understand that. Many are waiting for the iPad 3 now, so holding on to June, July could be very hard for some people that have waited long. For me, for example, I have still the iPad 1, I skipped the iPad 2, I want to buy the iPad 3. But I bought the iPhone 4S, so I can probably wait to June, July for an iPad 3. I think I can do that. Ibish Manov comments that he don't think on an iPhone 5 will have a 5-inch because then all developers need to do new resolutions for the apps, and yes, that discussion I have had many times. I think it's very tough for the developers if they need to do that. A 4-inch iPhone though could possibly still keep the Retina resolution, so but 5-inch is not possible, but 4-inch could actually. So still, I don't think an iPhone will have a 5-inch, maybe 4-inch, not bigger. I guess I think that's most of the discussion. Ibish Manov comments a great comment again. He says that the funny thing is that more specs the other manufacturers put in their device to compete with Apple iPad, the more expensive the product is to produce, and they need to sell it for a lesser price than the iPad to compete. It's the same story all over again. Apple has the margins and profit, while all the others compete on specs and price until everyone is losing money except Apple. And that's completely true. Every other manufacturer, Android manufacturer, they only talk about specs, never on user experience or usefulness and such, quality and such. The more specs an Android tablet has, the more expensive the device will be. So it's completely true. I agree with Ibish Manov. He's completely right with this. So I explained to Alex Lieber why I think the iPad 2 will drop in price when the iPad 3 is released. And as I already said, that they did that with iPad 1 when iPad 2 was released. So I think it will do the same with the iPad 2. Ibish Manov says that he hates empty rumors like iPad 3 in March and iPad 4 in October. I don't believe in those rumors either. It's totally bullshit. Because two iPads in the same year is not possible for Apple. They never do that. Never. They never do that. So I don't believe that. And this is not a rumor. This is my personal thoughts, my personal opinion on when the iPad 3 will be released, not a rumor, and he understands that. So this was my personal analysis of when I think the iPad 3 will be launched. I said it again, I think it will be launched in June, July on the Worldwide Developer Conference. And the reason is that iPhone has a new launch period in autumn, October, November. Apple has moved that launch date to the autumn. So it's a perfect period to launch the iPad in June, July on the Worldwide Developer Conference. iPad is a very important product for Apple, so I think it's a perfect date for it. And I think Apple needs that time to make the iPad 3 as special and as good as possible to crush the competition totally. So read the post. I linked to the Google Plus post in the description on the YouTube video. So go to that post and post your own comments on the discussion. So do that. Bye.